Thanks, Jude. Well, tomorrow sees leading government and private sector counter piracy and shipping experts meet for 2 days in Dubai to discuss ways of making the high seas safer. Well, here to tell us how piracy is being tackled and what else needs to be done is Jon Huggins, the director of Oceans Beyond Piracy, an American NGO that focuses on ways to respond to maritime piracy. Welcome to the show this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on.
No, our pleasure. I know it's a busy week for you for the conference, so thank you for coming in today. Now, obviously, a very difficult situation. What do we need to do in terms of encouraging greater engagement around the globe to deal with piracy? Do we need to change the rules of engagement when dealing with these pirates?
I think when we look at the response to piracy, we look at three different questions. Is the response effective? Is it sustainable? And is it equitable? And I think the question last year was the effectiveness. I think you could argue that it was not effective. We had 800 seafarers being held. We had many ships being taken, going up every year. I think you can argue now, because the numbers are down, that we do have an effective response. But I think the next question you have to ask, is it sustainable? It's a very expensive program. It involves a lot of private security and a lot of very controversial things. And then finally, the equitability piece. Are the right people paying for it? Do we need more regional involvement? Do we need a greater industry participation? So these are some of the questions that we're looking at right now.
So tell me, is it sustainable? Do we have the right people and the right ways of tackling this?
I think that no one is happy with the current system, let me put it that way. I think industry does not want to see things like private armed guards. They do not want to see those institutionalized because there's liability concerns and they want to go back to a more normalized maritime traffic. I think also that it's been a very expensive adventure for Western navies to deploy vessels off the coast of Somalia, and they're looking for more of a regional involvement to be more sustainable.
Okay, all about cooperation across this part of the world. Now, of course, last month we saw EU forces launch their first attack on Somalian pirates on their own soil. Now, do you think we'll see more of this in the future? Is this the best way to deal with pirates?
I guess I'll answer the second part first. Being a foundation, we are looking for a rule of law response. So obviously the best answer for us would be that we create deterrence through a prosecution of pirates that is fairly institutionalized. We would not want to see, I think, what the EU strike represents as a failure in that system, but perhaps a necessary step at this point to be able to demonstrate this. So I think that it was more of sending a message this time, and I think that if it's going to be continued, I think you'll see the pirates have been very adaptable to now. I think you'll see that it will be very difficult to continue along those lines.
So essentially you're saying there are more effective ways of dealing with pirates than this method?
Yes, but I think, again, probably a necessary tool for right now, at least to send a message. But I think in the future we need to look towards rule of law as a solution.
Absolutely, making sure we can constantly adapt. Now, just how big of a problem is piracy at the moment? Obviously, we have seen figures come down somewhat this year. So in terms of hostage victims, in terms of the economic damage it's doing to our world, what kind of figures are we looking at?
Well, we released our economic cost of piracy report. And again, as you mentioned, the figures were closer to around $7 billion this year. And I think $5.3 billion of that was paid by industry, and then the other 1.5 by international navies. So it's expensive, but I think the maritime industry is huge. And from what we've heard, these losses are not going to drive a change in the industry or a change in routing. I think what is more, and you alluded to it, what's more important is the human cost. We had over 1,000 seafarers taken last year. We've had over 500 taken this year. The length of being hostage is longer and longer. 6 to 9 months is normal now. I think also we're seeing that we're better documenting the violence that they faced during this long time. So I think there's still a human tragedy that is happening on the Somali coast that we need to be aware of.
So in terms of really tackling the root causes, the problems of Somalian pirates, how can we try and do this when you consider there really isn't a stable government in Somalia?
I think it has all to do with better governance ashore. And a lot of that, I think, relies on economic development and building up those institutions. And again, the theme of this conference is public and private partnerships. And this is where I think that we could see some cooperation that's going to move things forward. For economic development, for example, who is better at doing that than industry itself and creating jobs? Whereas the development of certain organizations and oversight responsibilities for better governance, that has to be done by governments.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the cooperation, do you think we need more finance? Do you think we need, obviously, the new jobs in there? I guess the investments in Somalia?
Right, and when we looked at the amount of money that's being spent, like we said, around $7 billion, most of that is on things that need to be done every year. So that will be a continuous outlay by both shipping industry and governments. And what we would like to see is just some of that money now move to a longer-term sustainable thing so that we can make the investments and so we can lower that $7 billion figure over the next few years.
Absolutely, but if companies are wanting to invest in Somalia, if people are wanting to help there, it's obviously a very dangerous climate to enter at the same time. How can they be assured of safety even if they try to invest in the country? It seems like a catch-22, I guess.
I think you're right. It's very difficult right now for investments, but I do think that there's some optimism on the horizon. What we see is what they're calling the end of the transition, the adoption, hopefully, of a constitution for all of Somalia. We've seen things like the London Conference on Somalia, which took place in March, also another conference in Istanbul. We've seen private industries such as DP World and our organization as a private foundation, and others are coming forth now to start investing. So there are hopeful signs, but you're right, it's still a very big challenge.
Well, hopefully light at the end of the tunnel. Well, Jon, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Good luck at the conference this week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.